It's the third and final race of the weekend, the Pro Tyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge here from the fabulous Oulton Park circuit in Cheshire. We have already enjoyed two very, very entertaining races from this championship so far, which have seen Josh Malin come out on top on each occasion, but I believe that the result of the second race of the weekend, the first one earlier on this afternoon, is still being disputed because there was a little bit of contact between Josh Malin and race leader James Taylor that put Taylor pointing the wrong way, and Josh Malin may possibly have to serve some sort of a penalty for that one, but it was still an entertaining race. Josh Malin had his hands full even once he wrestled the lead away because Johnny Wilkinson was right up behind him. Gordy Much, one of his sparring partners from 12 months ago, was also a contender for the race win in race number 2. It's set to be another entertaining 15 minutes of action here from the Oulton Park circuit. The Ginetta GT5 Challenge, as I said, has thrilled us all weekend long. They had a great race yesterday, but now we can have a look at some of the highlights from this afternoon's second race of the day. As I said, it was Josh Malin that came from third on the grid into second ahead of Johnny Wilkinson, but the lead was held by James Taylor in the number 64 car, the all-white car, with whom Josh had done battle for the race victory in yesterday's first race and passed him on the final lap of that race. Malin was itching to get through, attacking already as they went through Cascades for the first time in that 15-minute race, which thankfully on this occasion was not interrupted by the safety car. Gordy Much came through to third, so Johnny Wilkinson, who started on the front row, was down to fourth halfway around the first lap, but he would later be able to get his way a little bit further towards the front. First of all, by going up the inside of Gordy Much into Old Hall Corner. That was a textbook overtake at a tricky part of the circuit to make a pass stick, but he was into third, then started to apply the pressure to Josh Malin, who in turn was still trying his best to get ahead of James Taylor, the race leader. The two of them almost making contact on a number of occasions. Eventually, though, things did just get a bit too close for comfort. Down into Lodge Corner, Malin saw a gap, went for it. He was desperately late on the brakes, but James turned into the corner, and Malin went through into the lead whilst James was pointing the wrong way. He rejoined way down the order, but did eventually get back through into 10th place. Karim Sekat had a spin at the Britain chicane. Off at the preceding corner at Shell went John Bennett in the Elite Motorsport car. Josh Malin, though, was the man that won the race, and second place went the way, in the end, of Johnny Wilkinson, who it looks as though has inherited pole position for this third and final race of the weekend. Josh Malin, I haven't had official confirmation of this, but looking at the grid, he's been knocked down to 7th place, so it would appear that a post-race penalty has been applied to Josh Malin, and as a result, that has a direct impact on his grid position for this one, because the grid for our final race is based on the results from race 2, so wherever you finished race 2 is where you will start race 3, and with Wilkinson on pole and Conor Garlick alongside him, that suggests that Josh Malin has unfortunately lost that race win that he took on the road earlier on. There is Josh, the white and blue number 90 car from the Richardson Racing stable, turning into its 7th place position, so Josh can still do some damage from there, hopefully not literally this time, but he can definitely still have an impact on the race. The key is to get away with the lead pack, as we were suggesting in that first race. Once the lead pack make a break, because the cars are all identical, it's very, very hard to bridge that gap and close back in on them. That was the problem that some of the midfield drivers had in race 1. The lap time were good, but they just missed the chance to go with the leaders. Marshall's there telling some of the drivers that they're in the wrong place. That was not the green flag lap, though. That was the out lap from the pit lane. So the message here that seems to be taking a bit of a while to get through is that they need to swap positions on the green flag lap. Overtaking not normally permitted on the green flag lap, but if the drivers are in the wrong position, then I suppose in a way they have to. So last couple of drivers just being guided into position, and that is the last car in now, I think, and that's John Bennett, who had that spin into the gravel. No damage done to the car, it was just buried, couldn't go anywhere, so John Bennett having to start from towards the back of the rain grid for this third race, of the weekend. So green flag lap then gets underway. Cars heading out onto the circuit at low speed for the final time, they hope. And a 15-minute race lies ahead of us, gives us a chance to have a look at the grid then, which sees Johnny Wilkinson take the pole position, Conor Garlick alongside him, then David Ellerslie and Gordy Much sharing row number 2. All of these drivers in the pro class. Jesse Chamberlain and Magnus Kruklevi are on row 3 together, and then on row number 4, 7th and 8th on the grid for Josh Malin and Ashley Marshall. Josh Malin down there after that penalty was applied. Rounding out the top 10 then on row number 5, Rory McKean and James Taylor, who will have a score to settle, I would imagine, with Josh Malin after that previous race. And then our AM winner from the previous race, Richard Tetlow, is 11th, alongside Charlie Budd. The Budd brothers have had no luck this weekend, as kind of was the case last year, really. Daniel, his brother, is 30 on the grid. Then the 7th row of the grid, Balsidou and Karim Sekat, with John Bennett at the back in that 27 car that I said had the moment up at Shell. So as the cars then make their way around on the final green flag lap of the weekend for these drivers, I'm joined again up here in the comms box, by Joe Osborne. Joe, I think I need a break. I can't get my words out. It's been a long old day, hasn't it? And a long weekend for these Ginetta drivers, many of whom are not that experienced. And bear in mind, most of them were here testing on Friday. They had a qualifying and a race yesterday, 2 races today. It's been hot. It's a tough circuit. It takes it out of them.
Yeah, definitely, mentally and physically. The mental side's obviously, the concentration levels are so high. For me, there's nothing I can compare in day-to-day life that takes it out of you so much. So we may see some mistakes creeping in on that. And yes, physically, they're probably not the most demanding cars, but you're still smashing over some curves that give some pretty brutal inputs into the car. It's normally your ribs that take the most. Obviously, there's not much flesh around them, depending on your body type. So yeah, can get a little worse for wear by the end of the weekend, for sure.
We believe there was a penalty applied to Josh Malin after that incident with James Taylor in the previous race. He's starting down in 7th place now. You gave us your thoughts about that, and you sort of alluded that that might happen, but I'm interested to see now what Josh can do from 7th. He's clearly got the speed. He won both the first 2 races on the road, having overtaken James Taylor on both occasions. He and James will be starting quite close to each other on the grid as well. They're both going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, to me there was no malice in the move, obviously, but the contact was made, and it to me looked like more Malin's fault than Taylor's, and obviously looks like the stewards have probably agreed with that. So yeah, the hard thing now for Malin is last time he was on track, he won the race. He was first on the road, but he is now further back. The last time he overtook, there was contact, so that will be in the back of his mind. So if he wants to get a result now, there's a lot of cars that he's got to get past cleanly to get back to the front. So he'll be under a lot of pressure. Taylor, sort of similar in terms of the pressure level, but for different reasons. So he's going to have to get his head down, and this is suddenly where championships get blown wide open, either through your fault or no fault of your own, and maybe the guys at the front can cement themselves some decent championship points.
Slightly shortened season as well, for obvious reasons this year, so every race matters more, and if you do have a bad race, as Taylor had in that previous one, that can definitely, as you say, derail your championship. The annoyance for James as well, of course, is that although Josh was given a penalty, it didn't actually benefit James. He still stayed in 10th place, and he still finished behind Josh, so we'll be interested to see how those two race each other in this, the 3rd and final race of the weekend for the Pro Tyre Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. Johnny Wilkinson and Conor Garlick sharing the front row of the grid. Like to go on, they go out after a very short hold. It's a good start made by Garlick, actually, from the outside of row 1. I think he might get the advantage down towards Oswald Corner. He has. Johnny Wilkinson under pressure for 2nd from Gordy Much, and up the inside of everyone behind goes Josh Malin. It will be Conor Garlick that leads. Gordy Much tries the switchback, gets back alongside Johnny Wilkinson down the avenue towards Cascades. Wheel to wheel for 2nd. Wilkinson on the right, Much on the left. The right-hand side should be the best place to be, but again Wilkinson goes in tight and runs wide on the exit. So Gordy Much, for the 2nd corner in a row, gets the switchback, and this time he's bought himself a ticket to the inside line down at Island Bend. The leader is getting away, banging doors for 2nd place around the outside for Wilkinson. That's really brave. He's on the dirty side of the road, but that gives him the inside for Shell. Can he make that work? No, he cannot. Gordy Much is through into 2nd position. Brave stuff that from Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson. He didn't want to give away that second position, but on the outside of Island Bend, especially this late in the day, not really the place to be.
Yeah, super brave to even attempt it, and it nearly worked out. As you said, it was just probably the detritus offline that caused him to have to go slower, which then lost him the inside for Shell. So Much is really on the march there, obviously, from a good start. The leaders we see as a bit of a breakaway is 3, and then everyone together into the chicane side by side. Neither of them yielding. It's going to get tight through the left part. Now back to single file, but yeah, great to see every car still facing the right way after around the first lap.
Yes, that's 27 John Bennett trying to get past Richard Tetler, who is the AM leader. They're not actually in the same class, so Richard doesn't necessarily have to defend quite so vigorously, but it's not stopping him. There is the battle going on between Magnus Kruklivi and David Ellerslie, who's fallen back from his third place starting position. Johnny Wilkinson, though, as we saw in the previous race, fighting back as soon as he can. He lost ground at the start last time and worked his way back through to second, which then meant an inherited race win. Oh, contact going over the elite. That is a very risky place to be banging bumpers, and Johnny Wilkinson just trying to get to the inside up towards Old Hall Corner, but Gordy Much just came across in time to defend. So Conor Garlick leads, Gordy Much second, Johnny Wilkinson third, fourth for James Taylor from 10th on the grid. What a start that is. Well, Josh Malin gained 1 position, so he's up to 6th from 7th, but James Taylor, there he is, look, the white car in 4th position, 10th to 4th at Oulton Park. That takes some doing.
And to still have a clean front bumper, it looks like he's done it properly and by the rules. So yeah, he's obviously got a mega jump off the line, and he's picked a few off as he goes, and he is throwing it into Island with some serious vigour. As we see Much to the inside, that's an interesting overtake. So I would suggest that probably Garlick's made a mistake somewhere. He's still there, but this should be Much's now at the left. He can hold him out, and he's lost it. There's a bad gear shift or something. That is strange to see a car that was so far ahead not be in front of that car at the next corner.
I think he got on the curb coming out of Shell. I noticed Garlick ran wide at Ireland, which I think is what set it up, and then Gordy Much just ran a bit wide coming out of Shell in his excitement maybe, and as it happens they're all still in the same order and they're bunching up all the time. More and more cars joining in the fun now, so it's Garlick that leads. Much in second, has a look at the inside into Knickerbrook, but to no avail. Third place for Wilkinson, 4th place for Taylor, 5th place for Chamberlain, 6th for Malin. Is that still the order? Yes it is. Malin's still in 6th position, Kruklivi is 7th, but David Ellerslie there was trying to get up the inside as they went towards Druids Corner. Keep an eye on those two. Are they side by side? Yes, they are, and Ellerslie's gone through. So Ellerslie into 7th spot. He'll now try and chase after the leading group of 6, who again are separating themselves slightly from the cars behind. Wilkinson forcing Gordy Much to drive defensively. Oh, and Gordy didn't know which way to go there. He went to the middle of the road in the end, holds on to second, but that might sacrifice some exit speed. I don't think, Joe, that Conor Garlick in front is quite as quick as the drivers behind. It's hard to tell sometimes because of the slipstream, but every time he gets a bit of a gap over Gordy Much, it disappears within a corner or so. He's going to be under this pressure for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. We're seeing probably evidence supported by Ellerslie there doing the fastest lap, and he's in P7, and he's the only guy that had any clear space in front of him, and I think that's why he got the fastest lap, basically. I think we've already seen a couple of little mistakes from Garlick, as we see one there running wide. Also Wilkinson, I think that's going to give Taylor the inside for Ireland. So yeah, this is looking like what we said, maybe a bit of mental fatigue. There's a few mistakes creeping in. We're only 2 laps in, obviously, so that potential is only going to get worse, but there's a definite bit of an ignition point somewhere in this group of 4 in terms of a mistake leading to a bigger problem, I think.
Yeah, and don't forget that people like Jesse Chamberlain and Josh Malin are also trying to buy into all of this as well. That's the next group. Look, the orange car there, orange, blue and white car in 5th is Jesse Chamberlain. He's under some pressure now from Josh Malin, who can see the leading quartet getting away, and that will make him only more anxious to try and get through and chase after them. Gordy Much has a good exit from Britons, though, forces the race leader Conor Garlick to defend over the hill, but I don't think he's quite close enough, or is he? Tries to go right round the outside. This could work. It does. Brilliant stuff from Gordy Much. He goes around the outside at the first part of Hidlops, gets the inside for the left-hander. That is a valid move, Joe, but you're so reliant on the car on your inside not running wide. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and Gordy's got the lead.
I don't think I've ever seen that work, and definitely not that cleanly. That was inch perfect by both of them, but Much, it looked like he just had that pre-planned in his head and it just went through with it. And yeah, that was amazing to get all the way around the outside there. I mean, the process of that is he has to brake later in the first place to be able to get the momentum, to be able to then rotate the car on the further distance around the right-hander. It was super impressive. So that maybe gives the guys behind some ideas on to replicate that move, potentially at the same corner or something similar at the first chicane potentially.
Trouble is that now Gordy is the one punching the hole in the air, and so whereas a lap or so ago it looked as though Conor Garlick was struggling to hang on to the lead, now Gordy Much, who looked so much quicker a lap ago, is also having to drive defensively. He's watching his mirrors more than he's looking out of the windshield. There's a gap on the inside of Cascades, that very rarely ends well, and Conor Garlick bailed out of it, runs a bit wide, and now here comes James Taylor, aiming to try and get into second place from 10th on the grid, and he's going to do it. Goes on the inside into Island Bend, and he's gone through. What a drive this has been from James Taylor. He's been unlucky not to have won a race already this weekend, and he is determined to do something about that in race number 3. And it was important that he got past Conor Garlick before Gordy Much was able to build any sort of a gap. In the end, I'm not sure he was going to be able to, but James Taylor has absolutely made sure of it now. He's into second place, chasing after the leader. I mean, surely he's got the pace to win this race, but can he pass Gordy Much?
Yeah, he's definitely striking while the iron's hot at the moment. This is a brilliant drive from him, and he's getting a great drive out of Cascades every time to get that sort of run on the way down to Island. He's obviously got the car fully hooked up there, so he's obviously got good traction in his car. So interesting as we see, as you're saying, I think Garlick's struggling now to maybe hold on the back of that pace, so Wilkinson now needs to act quickly if he's got any chance of getting a win in this race for me.
Battle on for the lead though. Look at James Taylor, he's all over Gordy Much, harassing him through Druids, trying to put him offline into the corner so that maybe he can be quicker than him coming off it. That has worked. Look, Much is defending again into Lodge Corner. James Taylor tried to do to Gordy Much what Josh Malin did to him in the previous race. We all saw how that ended up, with James Taylor pointing the wrong way, but James bailed out of it and stays in second place. We're into the second half of the race now, just over 7 minutes to go. Gordy Much leads the way, second for James Taylor, third Conor Garlick, fourth place Johnny Wilkinson, then a small gap back of about 3/4 of a second to Jesse Chamberlain in fifth. Josh Malin still sixth, not really making progress here. Ellerslie 7th, Crickleviers 8th, Marshall 9th, and McKean in 10th place as Gordy Much defends into Cascades. Now, this is where Taylor's been strong. He gets a good exit from this corner, can't quite get to the inside, and Much is always going to defend. What about the outside, though, down to Island Bend? We've seen it can be done, but it's very, very risky.
Yeah, definitely. I think Much had learned in his mirrors exactly where Taylor had been strong and defended that inside line very early. So he's going to have to do that for the next 4 laps if he's going to hold him off. And I think this will force Taylor to go to a plan B. So he'll have another place lined up potentially in his mind where he thinks he can to get into the lead. I think it's interesting, Malin's obviously got pace, but it's really pretty much stuck at the moment with where he is behind Chamberlain. Doesn't really look like he's been able to even have a look to me at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see how that changes.
Jesse Chamberlain clearly feeling the pressure though, because he's been warned for exceeding track limits somewhere. So number 69 car in 5th position, the orange-sided car is pushing on here to try and keep Malin at bay. Speaking of pushing, Johnny Wilkinson's only an inch or so away from pushing Conor Garlick out of Knickerbrook there. Every time they go through that corner, they're inches apart, and they do seem to fall away from the top two, who are battling again. Oh, on the inside into Druids. James Taylor is getting a bit frustrated now, isn't he? He's trying to overtake at places that you don't often see much overtaking. Who's in the gravel? It's Malin! Josh Malin, the race 1 winner, is off at Druids. And, well, I sensed that maybe he was starting to feel a bit of frustration at being stuck behind Jesse Chamberlain. Didn't see how he ended up there, unfortunately. But Josh Malin off the road and presumably out of the race. And oh, that's massively frustrating for the youngster, who will have wanted to try and consolidate something out of this weekend. On the inside goes James Taylor. What a move, but there's contact through Oulton corner. Much is sideways and off. Oh, Gordy Much off the road, and here comes Conor Garlick attacking for the race lead as well. It's all kicked off all of a sudden, side by side down the hill. Taylor gets the lead. Garlick hung out to dry, and Wilkinson goes through into second. It all happened in the space of about 30 seconds there. Malin off the road, Much off the road as well, and James Taylor gets the lead. Well, Joe, I was about to say that was an absolute peach of a move by James Taylor, but talk us through it. What happens on the exit?
So it's a late dive. It looks clean, and it just, to me, looks like Much is trying to get a cutback again, but the car's there, and there's contact. I mean, you can see how wide Taylor runs, but for me, racing incident to maybe Much's fault slightly more, so I'd be surprised if any penalty was applied after that. I mean, it was a late dive from Taylor, but he got the car stopped. He was at the apex, and he left much room for me. It was much just maybe trying to get the cutback, as I said, and has caught the back of Taylor's car, which has then obviously made him lose control.
It goes to show how easy it is to unsettle these cars as well, because that wasn't a big hit, was it? It was just at the worst moment. Oulton is a much faster corner than you realise. The time you realise how quick it is when something goes wrong.
Yeah, definitely. And these cars, obviously, physically looking at them, they're very small, but they've got a very narrow and very short wheelbase, which inherently makes them quite snappy. So another move down the inside there. That's mega move, actually. I've seen a lot more overtaking, and Oulton obviously showed his pace early on with the fastest lap of the race early on, but yeah, maybe it's the end of the weekend. They're not too bothered about body panels having a few scratches on, and they're getting prepared. But it's turned into a big battle as well. I don't know how many cars we've got here. It must be 9 cars now, pretty much as one.
Yeah, I think it is actually, because Taylor is kind of escaping, but then you've got Wilkinson second, third for Ellerslie, as you said, who's flying, just sets the fastest lap actually, whilst overtaking at Druids, which takes some doing, 1:54.810. He could yet challenge for second, maybe even the win actually, with 3 minutes still to go. Conor Garlick's dropped down to 4th, but he's still in the lead pack. Chamberlain is 5th, which is kind of where he's been at all points. There he goes, number 69 car, and then right behind him, car number 29, Ashley Marshall, just picking his way up the order, attacking Chamberlain a bit now as they go down the Lakeside Straight. Then it's Magnus Kriklevi in 7th and 8th position. The man that did have the fastest lap until that previous lap time from David Ellerslie eclipsed it is Rory McKean. Then 9th position for number 47, Daniel Budd, and 10th for our AM leader. And there is actually there was quite a good battle going on for the AM lead. They're separated now slightly between Ian Duggan and the 24 car of Richard Tetlow. So Tetlow, who won the previous race, back behind Duggan again now. So Taylor looks comfortable now, doesn't he? He's got that lead away, and a 6/10 of a second lead in this championship is about as comfortable as it will ever get. What do you think, though? Has Wilkinson or maybe even Ellerslie got the pace to go after him?
I think we're running out of time a little bit, and to me, I think seeing how quickly Taylor got to the front, I think he's probably got the pace, and maybe even a little bit in his pocket that, if pushed, he could maybe draw upon and use a bit more effectively. But yeah, I think it's been a great race. I think Wilkinson's driven really smart, but doesn't quite have that last couple of tenths in this race to get Taylor.
And hasn't been making good starts, which, okay, you can overtake in this category, but you'd rather not have to. You know, you'd rather be leading from the front. He's had good grid positions. He started on pole for this race. You have to wonder if he wasn't making himself work for it by dropping down to 3rd or 4th at the first corner, maybe he'd have been able to hang on to the win. But there's been very little that anyone's been able to do to stop James Taylor in this one. He looks good for the victory. David Ellerslie sets another fastest, no, he doesn't actually, that was the last lap, but he is attacking for second, and Johnny Wilkinson feeling the heat now from David Ellerslie, who has, again, been running inside the top 5 or 6 all weekend long, tries to challenge now down into Cascades. This will be the final lap of the race. It was actually a new fastest lap for Ellerslie as well, 1:54.206, and Wilkinson all of a sudden seems to have gone off the boil a bit. Chase Taylor running wide in front of them. The real battle, though, the one for second.
Yeah, I mean, the top 5, their last lap was all within a tenth of each other, so it shows you how tight it is. And I think this is our flashpoint here, is how much is Wilkinson going to defend this. They have no pit car radios in this championship, but they do have pit boards, so if they were looking at it as they came over the start-finish line, they'll all be aware that this is their last lap. So slightly changes your outlook on it. He probably is conceding he's not going to win. Looks like it's a couple of seconds now. So it's worth keeping your elbows out, losing more time, because it is the last lap. There's nothing else you're going to gain from it.
So just under half a lap to go then. James Taylor looks good for the win, but who will be joining him on the podium? Not that they have podium presentations these days with social distancing rules, etc., but who will be picking up the podium trophies? Well, that could still be any 2 of 3 drivers, because Conor Garlick, to his credit, has not really dropped away from these 2, and the mistake actually comes from David Ellerslie there, coming out of Knickerbrook corner. Didn't really seem to lose him too much momentum, though. Up and over Clay Hill, through the left-hand kink at the Water Tower and into Druids, where Johnny Wilkinson still feels the need to defend the inside line, and that means that David Ellerslie is quicker off the corner. Is there a gap on the inside? He thinks there might be, but there very much isn't. Johnny Wilkinson made sure of that, and that loses them both momentum, and Conor Garlick sees an opportunity to go round the outside. It's the last corner of the last lap. You might as well give it a go. I'm not sure we're going to see any changes, though. Definitely no changes for the lead, but James Taylor from 10th on the grid wins round number 3 of the Pro Time Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. Johnny Wilkinson second, third David Ellerslie, 4th for Conor Garlick, And 5th position goes the way of Ashley Marshall. Further back, this is the fight with Ian Duggan actually trying to overtake one of the, Gordy Much, that is. That's the other way round. Much getting past Ian Duggan then for 8th position. And Jesse Chamberlain has not come through. Jesse was in 5th and hasn't completed the final. Oh, now he comes through in 13th with quite a lot of gravel down the side of the car. I think I spotted out of the window. So Jesse Chamberlain, 13th position and a top 5 place sadly thrown away. The only retirement actually appears to be number 44 Charlie Wood, because Josh Malin did get back out of the gravel and came through in 15th place. So Josh will salvage some points, but well, that is a shame that a weekend that promised so much for Josh Malin has not quite delivered. James Taylor, though, does finally get the win that he will argue he deserved in the previous race. Johnny Wilkinson in 2nd, and David Ellerslie in 3rd position. Conor Garlick 4th, Ashley Marshall 5th, then Crick Livy, McKean Much 8th after his spin. Again, decent recovery. Ian Duggan 9th, wins the AM class ahead of Richard Tetlow in 10th position. Daniel Budd is the only Budd brother to finish this one, ahead of John Bennett in 12th place. Jesse Chamberlain 13th after a mysterious last lap moment. Val Sidhu is 14th and the 3rd of the AM drivers, with Josh Malin recovering to 15th place. So another entertaining round of the Pro Tire Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. They've had 3 good races today, this weekend, and 3 different race winners as well. And here is what happened in the final race, arguably the most dramatic of the weekend so far. At the front of the field, it was Conor Garlick on pole position. Or second on the grid, actually. He snatched the lead away, though, from Johnny Wilkinson into turn number 1, with Gordy Much trying everything he could to get that 2nd place away from Wilkinson. He tried a switchback out of Old Hall. That didn't work. Then tried the switchback out of Cascades, and that didn't work because Wilkinson held tough round the outside at Island Bend. Gordy did eventually go through, but then Johnny Wilkinson was trying everything he could do to take it back away. They made contact going over the hill across Deer Leap before Gordy was able to attack for the race lead. Took advantage of a mistake for Conor Garlick, but then made one himself immediately after, and Garlick got the lead back. Second time lucky, though, for Gordy Much. Went round the outside into Hislop's, got the lead for, well, he hoped for good through the Hislop chicane from Conor Garlick. Sadly, though, Gordy's race was to take a downward turn about 2/3 of the way through. Battling going on behind as James Taylor came through from 10th on the grid to run 2nd going into the closing few laps of the race, applying pressure to Gordy Much in front, whilst Josh Malin, the race 1 winner, went off into the tyre wall at Druids. He rejoined and finished in 15th. The big moment of the race, the big move of the race for James Taylor up the inside of Gordy Much at Old Hall Corner. Gordy tried to fight back and they made contact, and around went the number 48 car. He spun and finished down in 8th position, which was a lot further down than he arguably deserved to be. Another spin there going through Old Hall Corner. That was the number 10 car. 2nd time that car's been off. Karim Sekat had a spin in the previous race. And then at the front of the, oh, that was what happened to Jesse Chamberlain. A spin coming out of Cascades and leaves some bodywork behind for the marshals to clear up afterwards as well. It was James Taylor, though, that was able to hang on to the win. 2nd for Johnny Wilkinson, unlucky not to win a race this weekend. And David Ellerslie, with a fighting 3rd, took the fastest lap as well.